The last thing I want to look at today with you guys is just a quick introduction to reharmonization. And I want to look at two techniques. The first one is using the relative minor to substitute a particular chord. We can always use the relative minor of a given chord as a substitute. And I'm going to give you an example right now using Amazing Grace. The reason I chose that song is most people are familiar with that song, so you can easily follow along the melody and the chords. Using C. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. So I'm going to take that bit of the song. So if you notice, I was on C quite a lot. The rule states that you can substitute some of those C's with its relative minor. In this case would be A. So I can go, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved. See? Substituted. A wretch like me. And that's one place. And a lot of songs you can do that with. 9 times out of 10, it works. But again, it's something you have to explore, experiment with, and listen and go, did it sound good? And if it sounds good, great. If it doesn't, too bad. But it's a rule that can be used a lot. Substitute any chord with its relative minor, and it works. And the reason that concept works is because if you look at a C major chord and an A minor chord, they share 2 notes in common, C and E, very common tone. And so that's why they work. Moreover, if you make A minor 7th chord, it has all the notes belonging to C. And that's why it works. The last thing I want to look at in terms of reharmonization or substitutions is the secondary dominant. This is also a topic I explained in one of my videos on YouTube. And a secondary dominant is just basically using a dominant 7th chord that doesn't belong to the key. We already know how to build a dominant 7th chord. It's a major chord with a minor 7th. A secondary dominant is when you take one of the minor chords, make it into a dominant 7th. That's basically what a dominant 7th was. And so using the Amazing Grace again, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch. Right there, D7, like me. I once. So you see how I slipped that D7 in there? D in the key of C should be minor, yeah? But yet still, I made it into a dominant 7th. And the reason it's called a secondary dominant is because it resolves to 5. It temporarily acts as a 5. And so in classical harmony, we often refer to like a D7, the 5 of 5. See? D chord is a 5 in C. D is the 5 of G. So they call it the 5 of 5. And it's a secondary dominant because it's a dominant 7th chord, and it's being used almost like the dominant 7th in the major key. Because we know when we're in the key of C, G is a dominant 7th. yeah, which always takes us back to 1. But now I'm making D into a dominant 7th, but it's not taking me back to 1, and moreover, D is not supposed to be a dominant 7th in the key of C. So it's a secondary dominant, and it's been used on a secondary basis, temporarily, what we call tonicizing. And tonicizing means to make tonic, or to make root note, or to make home, to make the 1 chord. We're temporarily making 5 as if it's the 1, making G sound like it's the 1, but G basically will resolve to C. Because after we go, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch, see, like me. Then we make G into a dominant 7. It takes you back to 1. I once. And so a lot of the time we can reharmonize, or we can use a secondary dominant as a passing chord. Now there's a lot more to secondary dominants, a lot more. I'm not going to give you guys too much in this video because I want you to digest all of this. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video,